How's it going, folks? I'm Matt. This is Photosynthetic. Welcome to another episode of Meet the Industry. Today, we have a very special guest. Caitlin Miller from Black Earth Products joins us today to talk about Humates. Caitlin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Matt. I'm excited to be here, making my YouTube debut, I guess, if you will.
Hey, and absolutely stoked to have you here on the show. It's an interesting tale how I learned about Black Earth. Recently, I'd taken a gardening course from a gentleman who calls himself KNF Garden on Instagram, and wonderful individual, talks about all sorts of cool products, and he introduced me to Humates, and I found you guys just through the internet, and it's funny because you happen to be very, very close to me here in Alberta, and I know we're going to get into talking about that, but Alberta is actually a source for humic acid, and I've got questions on that. But before we get into it, if you do like what I'm doing here, you want to support the show, link down below to my Patreon. And if you want to join the Discord, please just reach out to me and we'll get you in there because we do run contests and giveaways and all sorts of cool stuff. But we're not here to talk about that today. We are here to talk about humic acid and humates and all the sorts of cool things that they can do for us, not only in the garden, but outside.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Caitlin, I guess before we get into talking about the product and the company itself, why don't you give me just a little bit about your background and how you came to work with Black Earth?
Yeah, for sure. So my background, I've been involved in agriculture pretty much my entire life. I grew up on a purebred beef cattle operation kind of in north central Alberta, still family operated. So I'm still back in the cow business when I can. And then I moved down to southern Alberta about 10 years ago, and I've been continually involved in agriculture. That's my educational background as well. And then came to be, I've been with Black Earth now for about 14 months, just kind of fresh into the sales role. So I'm our Canadian sales rep for Black Earth, and I cover all the provinces and territories. I just don't do BC. We have a guy based out of BC, but we're a pretty small organization. And I came on board as a CSR and then started doing the sales side of things and doing a little bit of research projects with us as well. So yeah, it's been a whirlwind. I'm not sure how I'm already 14 months into this job.
Oh, time flies, especially when you're doing something as interesting as, at least I find, agriculture. I mean, it's definitely a passion for me, gardening and all that sort of thing. Now, Black Earth themselves, how did they get started as a company? Can you talk to that a bit?
Yeah, so we're a small company. We're privately owned, and we've been around since 1998. So Black Earth is essentially we're a company that manufactures humic products. Like you mentioned earlier, our humic comes right from here in Alberta. We have two operating plants that kind of do the manufacturing side of it, if you will. And then our head office here in Calgary, Alberta. So we sell and market our product into various industries, horticulture, livestock, agriculture, aquaculture, drilling, manufacturing. It's kind of a list of many. I laugh. I was talking to a friend today and I'm like, what a day I'm having. I was talking to a deer farmer in New York, a turf rep here in Calgary, and now on the line with you. So it's my day is never the same, which is a pretty awesome experience when you work for a company that gets to dabble in so many fields, if you will.
Oh, that's fantastic, fantastic. And I definitely want to dig in a little bit more about those different fields because I didn't know myself that humates were available to so many different, uses, different industries. But before I ask you that, can you just tell me a little bit about humates in general and why they're important?
Yeah, for sure. So humics or humates or whatever term we want to kind of use, there's multiple terms out there in the industries that we talk to. And we here out of Alberta, we get a kind of a special term for our products. We get to be called Humalite, where a lot of other companies and mines that you'll find across North America and the world, they actually are called Leonardite. And we get to be called Humalite because of how our humic is broken down. So we come from a lot of a plant freshwater breakdown, where a lot of the other humics come from an animal or more of a saltwater breakdown. So it allows our product to really kind of stand up and stand out against the rest of the industries. And it's really important, I think, when we're talking humics or products, as consumers, it's really important to understand where it's coming from. So, when we talk about being on a shelf space or being next to somebody, I always tell it's an education process when I talk to my consumers, for sure. It's, make sure you're comparing apples to apples. Ask where that product's coming from. Where is it derived from? Like what is the true breakdown of that humic? Because they're all different right across the board. So it's really important to really understand that first very ground step of where that product is coming from. And humics, when we pull our humic, it's right from here. Like you said, it's from Alberta. We manufacture it at our two facilities here, again, in Alberta. And so we are a small company, but we ship our products all around the world, because when we stack ourselves up against a lot of the mines out there and a lot of the other places where humics are coming from, we really do believe we have a high quality product. And we've got, when we're talking about growing or even in the livestock consumption, we have really low heavy metal counts, lots of other like trace minerals and trace compounds that are in there. So the biology and the makeup of the humic is just, it's crazy when you really strip it down and start to look at that particle itself.
Yeah, it's quite an amazing material to begin with. And you touched on the derivative process used to extract the humic. Now, can you talk to just the difference between the two? I believe the big thing is you guys extract to about a 65% purity, and that's the highest that you can get without doing some sort of, it was saltwater derivative?
Yeah, so our product is, and I guess that's another piece of the education too. So when we talk about the actual humic content on any product out there, it's really important, one, I think, to understand where that product is coming from, that, like I said, that original source. And two, how are we getting to that number? And how, by that I mean, how are we testing for that number? So when we talk about our product being, it's really pure, it's a great humic content. Some people look at it and go, well, it's not as high as, coming out of let's say New Mexico or North Dakota, a mine like that. Well, some people don't test with the highest testing method, and we do. We use what's called the HPTA method.
Okay.
That's probably not the industry standard, but it should be. It's a very high quality test, very scientific. It allows us to look at, when we talk about humic, we also kind of talk about fulvic. And fulvic is kind of almost, they're attached. They're one and the same. They spread each other out. When we look at them through the HPTA, we get a true number of what humic is and what fulvic is. When we talk about the colorimetric testing, which is a very common test method that a lot of companies will use, the numbers will look higher. So us, like our product itself on a colorimetrics test method, we're 80% plus for humic. So, when we use the HPTA, yes, it's a lower number, but it is a truer number. So it's really important when you're looking at a humic product to understand, like I said, where it's coming from and how are they testing for that number, because that HPTA method is just, it's really scientific, it's proper, it's the highest of quality of tests that you can do out there. So you want to make sure, I talk to my guys all the time, you want to compare apples to apples, not apples to oranges.
That makes so much sense to me. I've got a background in electronics testing, and I know that the validity of the test based off of different tests can certainly be different. And like I say, it's about accuracy and which is really better for the end result. Now, humates and fulvics, or humics and fulvics, can you just talk about the difference between the two?
Yeah, so like I said, the humic and fulvic, they're very much usually attached to each other. So any of our products, when we look at them, they're going to have a humic content as well as a fulvic content. We do sell a pure fulvic product. So it goes through kind of a manufacturing process to be kind of stripped down. It's a liquid fulvic that people will use as, the fulvic is really for like a biostimulant, if you will. So for that plant, we have guys in the agriculture world that use it, blend it with herbicide applications, or, you know, just a general feed to their plant. They don't need a lot of fulvic. And so when we look at, like, most of our products are about a 64 to 65% on our dry scheme, and they're about a 3% fulvic content in there. So there's not a lot of fulvic, but it's still there and it still serves its purpose for that plant. And when I talk, you know, liquids or dries, that fulvic is that biostimulant really working to feed that plant, or the humic is the soil amendment piece of the puzzle. And when I talk to a lot of guys, like, that's the, you know, from a livestock side of thing, it's the gut health movement. It's the soil. It's, you know, we're just making our soil healthier and we're trying to amend it so that it's going to continue to produce, because we do a lot of work out there from an agriculture's perspective or a hort perspective, whatever you want to talk about. You know, your soil has to do a lot for you, and we don't necessarily always think about it. And we're always expecting it to be, you know, well, why is my plant doing something, right? Or why did Farmer Joe over here get something and over there not? So, you know, really making sure your soil is healthy is so important in any type of gardening or agriculture, anything that we're doing. So that's where that humic piece comes into play.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I very much no-till organic gardening guy myself. Preaching to the converted in that regard. So, what sort of things, what sort of benefits are humics bringing to my plants?
The list is long, I guess.
Yes, it is.
So the thing with humics is it is a carbon-based product. So carbon in anything that we're doing is so important. It starts to really work with the nutrients that are, lots of the times soil are really nutrient rich, but maybe some of those nutrients aren't really fully available for those plants to use. So when we talk about a conventional farming method, we're always putting an NPK blend down, and that's still an important piece. But right now, how can we start to utilize what's there and find ways to, I heard a guy say it. He goes, I've started using humics to make my poor soil decent, my decent soil good, and my good soil great. And that becomes, because we're starting to really activate all the nutrients that are sitting there. Phosphorus, if we're having a moisture issue, we went through a big major drought here in Western Canada. So I saw a lot of fields this summer, and some of the ones that really held up were with humics on them, because humics have the ability to hold moisture 7 to 10 times a humic particle's weight. Wow. We can hold the additional moisture. So that's huge out there. When you talk about watering, we don't have to water as much because we have that humic in the ground and we're starting to use that. The microorganisms that are inside of humics, and those start to activate and work with it. The organic matter, we start to break down. We increase our CEC exchange in our soil, which is so important, because then those nutrients start to work together and become more available to the plant. Making our soil more usable is obviously a huge value. We also talk about just like an overall increase in organic matter. So when you talk about, the biology behind it and adding to your soil and making it more productive, that's what humics kind of come into play and start to do for you.
And it makes you wonder why anybody wouldn't be using them to begin with. But it's not just gardening. It's not just agriculture where we see a benefit. Black Earth sells to a variety of different industries. Could you talk about that a little bit and tell me some of the benefits that we see there?
Yeah, so we sell into a crazy amount of industries. Like when I started with this company, I was like, what? Like, we're doing stuff here and there. And like I said, we sell all over the world. We're in over 43 countries, and that kind of expands year after year. But the biggest focus, I think, for us is really agriculture. We've got a big footprint in agriculture. So that's huge for us. we're starting to do, from my perspective, a lot more turf management.
Okay.
So golf courses, really focusing on them, and they kind of get shafted. They tend to be on some really crummy soil. So really trying to help improve that soil condition. So those golf courses always kind of look mint and beautiful, if you will. From a livestock perspective, we are used in almost any type of livestock that you can think of, be it a beef cow, a dairy cow, a pig, a chicken. It's crazy. We're a couple months ago, I was talking to a lady about being in fish feed. So
Wow.
when I say I have crazy amount of conversations, it's I have one guy that they're looking for like human and that kind of piece of the puzzle. So like we talk about fulvics in people. That's obviously improvement in
Wow.
gut health and stuff like that. So
Yep.
like, drilling, I deal with drilling clients on a regular basis, and they're putting it in for just soil structure and maintenance after they're done drilling and going down
Oh,
holes.
okay.
So
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
manufacturing people at it, we do a lot of work with again, to that soil perspective. If we're going to like a Home Depot or something and buying a bag of soil, we work with some of those type of clients that are producing that potting soil, if you will. So we're in a lot of different avenues. It's sometimes hard to keep up with where we are and what people are doing with it, but like I said, my day never is the same, so it's very challenging some days, but very interesting because we do touch so many industries. So I'm constantly learning and figuring out new opportunities and how this works and plays into these various industries.
Oh, that's awesome. Keeps it fresh, keeps it challenging. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you're always going to learn something new each day in that regard. Now, with all these different industries, of course, you guys have a variety of different products, different applications, different granularities. Can you tell me about, what I'd want to use in gardening, for example, and then why?
Yeah, so like you said, you were introduced to Black Earth through K&F Garden. I talked to him quite a bit, and he uses our dry soluble products. So our
Yep.
Fuse DS, it's a 100% soluble humic, and he just adds it into his watering can every time he's using it, and it's such a minuscule amount that he uses.
Yeah.
And I think for the people that are watching or following you and have seen some of the pictures that he's posted of his plants, I think they speak for themselves.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and that's exactly it. They kind of all derive right from the same raw product, if you will. Anything that's in our lineup comes from this Alberta mine of ours, and we then develop different granularities, different liquid contents. We have some liquid products. So when we talk about like mainstream conventional agriculture, we use some of our coarser grade products just because of the equipment availability and how it can go out and be in large acres. The stuff that's going around the world, we ship some smaller particle sizes because they're using that to manufacture maybe their own type of liquids or pellets or crushing it. So, they're doing some work over there, but they want, like, they have mines or deposits right there in lots, like it's all over the world.
Yeah.
China, Australia, Spain, North America, throughout the US. But they're buying a lot of it from us, and we're moving it right from Alberta. That speaks to the quality, I guess, of our humic, if you will. So it's really like crazy how far this is widespread and how many people want to use the Alberta-based product. When we're feeding it to a livestock, we put it in kind of a smaller powdered form so that it's easy for them to consume. Liquid applications have their place inside of our agriculture, mainstream agriculture. So depending on what kind of application ability people have and what they want to use, liquids play a role. Like I've done liquids on my own, like plants in my own garden, so that I can spray them and just build my own kind of liquid, right? So
Yep.
it's just how whatever works for you and what you feel like would be a usable product, really.
Makes a ton of sense here. Totally. So if I wanted to find your products, you guys work through distribution. Is it just go to your website? Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. You can go to our website. You can get in contact with myself, and I can put you in line with the right people, if you will. Like I said, we're a pretty small company. We don't have a lot of salespeople, and we're continually growing, and I think touching more areas, if you will. So it's just depending on where you're located and what part of the world or part of Alberta or Canada or US, wherever you're listening from. Yeah, we might have a partner that could help you out. So I'd be happy to pass you along or help you out myself.
Right on, right on. And I'll put a link to your website down below and
Yeah, for
your
sure.
contacts on there. And then I'll also link KNF's site because he sells your products for a very
Yeah.
reasonable rate. And that's, down in the States. I think it's an excellent way to get at those products. Caitlin, it's been just an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. And this is sort of like the last question I always like to ask any of my guests. And what's pardon me, what is the next big thing for Black Earth for your industry?
I think the big thing for Black Earth is just continuing to educate.
Yeah.
Like from my perspective of where I am at, it's always trying to educate the consumer to make sure that people are aware of humics and the benefits that they play. It's been around for a long time, but I do often kind of refer to us as a bit of a toddler sometimes in the ag industry. We've been here, but it's just people are kind of almost skeptical, like, what? But we continue to grow, and the proof is in the pudding, if you will. We've worked with many partners across the world, and that's always the goal of, I think, any company, is to be able to grow, continue to work and be successful in the industries that we're touching. And we're always working on kind of new product development. We've designed products, I guess our Humates line, if you will. It's kind of a specialty line of products. That's where our fuse falls under. And looking to always find, I guess, another avenue that's helpful for any type of grower out there, be it a small grower, a large mainstream agriculture grower, a producer, whatever it is. We're always trying to find those products that fit the market and fit the time, because I think agriculture is always changing. Doesn't matter what I've done in my life. It's what was 10 years ago is probably not what's, convenient right now. So it's always just trying to grow with the times and be modern, I guess, if you will. And that's something that Black Earth strives for. We always want to make sure that the products, our people, are always there to help our customers.
Awesome, awesome. And as the world, I think, continues to turn back more to regenerative, natural style
Yeah.
farming, I think that, humic acid is going to play a really large role. So, Caitlin, thank you so much for your time today. Definitely learned a lot about your products, and I certainly encourage any of the people watching today to follow up further and get some for themselves. So, Caitlin, thank you so much for stopping by today.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, we're out.